tearing the valve apart, what you can do. Get out your old IR scope, and if there is a component that is much hotter than the other stuff in the system, that is the first place you look. It is dummy hydraulic troubleshooting 101. Get yourself one of these. You got a hydraulic problem? You look for the heat. You find the heat of the meat, you will get yourself to the angle of the dangle. Thanks for watching. Keep your dick in a vice.
Enemy at the buses.
We lost the lead. Fight hard.
Gentlemen, welcome back to the shop. In commiseration of our long-suffering cutting mat, getting a little haggard around the edges. I figured we won't put her out to pasture, but we're going to send her down to the miners on another bench as a replacement. Oh, fuck yeah. New cutting mat day. A little bit bigger, mine. A little bit bigger. Oh, yeah. That's a fucking lot bigger. Get in there. Haha. And straight from J.A. Pan, Wolfa. I like that. They make good stuff. They don't fuck around. Something about Japanese and quality, I find, anyway. But, yeah, what are we doing? Okay, so, friends in low places. Cheddar! Friends in low places being what it is, thank you very much, anonymous masked stranger in the dirty, greasy, stained, and above all, stained overcoat. While normally I tell you need a ticket to ride this train, in your case, we'll take just the stub. Thank you very much. We're going to have a boo with this. This is an industrial, I would say it's very likely a motor, and it's got something especial about it. Made in Sweden, no less. One of the highest standards of living Western countries in the world, if not the highest standard of living, and yet still they manage to make industrial Lego bits, still make money at it, still are able to make high quality product and make money at it. There's a lesson in that. There's a lesson in that. So having a quick peek at this, we can tell that it's an SAE, a 2-bolt flange, maybe an A or a B, and just a keyed shaft, and it's gotta be a motor because the inlet and outlet are the same size. Now, what type of motor? I'm not sure. What this third port would be, very likely would be a drain port for bypass leakage, just to allow any internal leakage, which is completely normal because hydraulics, motors and so forth, the oil is actually providing some sealing. So there's some design leakage there. We allow that to go back to tank. That also provides cooling. So without getting too deep into her, let's get into her. Coming from Sweden, a continental country, one would assume quite safely that it's going to be metric. However, very likely only the fasteners are going to be metric and everything else is going to be standard. It's going to be inch standard. Now, that's quite a small shaft, maybe 5/8. But these are not going to be, the ports are not going to be metric. They are going to be, I'll be willing to bet, O-ring boss. Sure enough, got that nice little chamfer O-ring boss. So O-ring boss, that means inch standard threads, fine pitch threads. Everything in on the bolting pattern and so forth is all inch, even though this was made in Sweden. Oh, we'll get in right in there. Ah! Tappy tap tap. Never force it. Just grab a bigger hammer. Tap, tap, tap. That's interesting. What the fuck those are? Okay. Whoa! I was expecting a roller or a gear rotor, but this is a bent axis piston pump incredible. We got the nose going off of her, beautifully machined. All it's got is just a double lip seal, appears to be Viton. How can they get away? This is a low pressure seal. How can they get away with that? Because this, of course, is probably 3,000 pound rated, PSI rated. Well, because the case is ported back to tank. So this is actually only at tank pressure. This is a great feature for troubleshooting, because if you have a component that's suspect, all you need to do is pull that case drain line off and see how much oil is flowing out of there. If it's got excess flow, like if it's pissing out of there, then chances are your components are worn right out. Here's an interesting feature we saw when we split it apart. There's a big gap there. The back section doesn't actually seal on the front section. There's an intermediary gland, what's got all the O-rings in there. That looks like a Teflon seal, but it's actually paint. So just a couple of O-rings and no backup ring at all is sealing that, whatever it is, maybe 20 PSI of case pressure. That's how that goes together. Now this is a bent axis motor, and I'll see if I can get that to pop out there. I'm not quite sure how this is supposed to work, so kind of just figuring it out as I go. Definitely an interesting part. Had a bit of a struggle with this. Obviously, I don't have the proper service tools, but there's a blind circlip in there, transmission style duckbill circlip, but retains that in the bore on that shaft. And here we have the manifold plate here in order to get the oil to go in and out. And if you'll allow me to do some clarifacting for you, this of course is a bent axis axial piston motor. That's the nomenclature of it. These two gears engage on each other. There's two spur gears. What happens is oil comes in the one side, pressurizes. That means that these pistons push out. In order for that piston to push out, because it's on a bent axis, it needs to be able to turn this. So these little pistons are sitting in these ball and sockets. As this pushes out, it needs to turn this. And because this is indexed with that, as it turns the output, it also turns this rolling element cage, the piston sleeve, the piston body, the cylinders. It moves the cylinders much like it's like a 6-shooter, right? So what happens is at the one end, at the inlet end, the pistons are like this, and then as we pressurize, it turns and it has to move out. So what's going on is these pistons are constantly moving in and out as they go through 360 degrees of rotation. On the inlet stroke, the pistons would be moving out. On the exhaust, the pistons would be moving in. So all these are part of the rotating section. This output shaft is beautifully machined. Everything is just perfectly machined. So what we'll do is, this has a castellated nut and a castellated retention washer. We will knock that down. And what that does is preloads these tapered roller bearings. And you can see the preload on there is quite tight. I can't turn that with my hand. And it was quite snug even in the bore. So I'll loosen this nut off, and then we'll explode this and see how all this works. We'll just get in there with everybody's favorite libation, the Knipex pliers, and it shouldn't be tight. Not tight because it's just preloading those tapered roller bearings. And there's the retention washer, and that's on there. Why is that on there so tight? Just a wee tap. Now in the vise, featuring a very useful tool, the bearing splitter, and we channel our inner millwright. But got the learner hammer here, copper, non-marring. I'll just give her a little tappy tap, and out she comes. I would have thought this spacer ring would have been threaded into something, but it's just strictly a spacer. There we go.
That's it.
Feast your eyes on the beauty of taking apart industrial stuff. We get to see some amazing attention to detail in this piece. So this solid piece turned down a whole bunch of different processes, beautifully machined, and then even either passivated or some sort of coating or process, chemical process, in order to, well, you see the difference here. This has been